What in the heck? All of a sudden, I'm being asked to sign into Zoom. How in the world?
I think we're in Zoom.
No, I know, but I mean, it says sign in to continue to Zoom. This has not happened before. Hold on one second.
You want to restart everything?
No, I think it's going to be just fine. It just, for some reason, it must have kicked me out of the Google sign in.
Oh.
Well,
So
don't tell them that you're still in the room running a room. Oh, you're not signed in.
no, it was Google that had, I guess, that had
Call
signed out
anybody. Oh, we're live.
because we're live now. Yeah, shh, don't tell anybody we're going live. Shh. So we are live on YouTube. Right? My name is Sheila Corona, and this is Conscious Conversation Central. And joining me are my gal pal posse, Lisa Flamino Rush and BZ Rieger. Welcome, ladies. So tonight we're not going to be doing a decode. We're going back to BZ was out walking in the beautiful sunshine today and came up with a couple of topics. And so we chose, and I actually put this topic out when I let everybody know we were going live tonight because we had the topic. I went ahead and put that out. So choose love and see the illusory fields dissolve into the new vibrational landscape. And so BZ, I would love it if you would expound on your title just a bit.
Well, and it's interesting. I had someone was asking a question just as you were talking about that. So the illusory fields. The question was, well, what do you mean? What are the illusory fields? Well, if you're looking out at what you think is your reality, and or reality itself, maybe you don't even think it's your reality. You think everybody's is the same, and you're looking out there. And right now, kind of like the movie The Matrix and other things. Um, you can see distortions in the video screen. That is what you had heretofore perceived as your reality. So there wasn't a video screen; it just was life, man. I mean, it was real. And so the illusory nature of it is breaking down, and it's why some things, if you are awake to the fact that there are different realities and there is a whole false construct holding up in one um, frequency bandwidth, and then you actually can see that, so you're in it and you're also outside of it at the same time. So in the world but not of it is a phrase that's often referred to. And
Do
when you
you
see
mind if
that,
I,
go ahead.
well, I was wondering if you mind if I say what I think I hear you saying.
Sure.
Because honestly, I think there's not enough of that goes on in conversations anyway. That's part of my whole premise, and one of the reasons why I like having these conversations is because we all speak a different language. But so when you were saying just now that, in it, not of it, and it is an illusory sort of situation, and the false construct, you also brought up the false construct, because a lot of folks that are new, because we new to the idea that it is even a false construct, but that is sort of the premise that we see going on right now. That's kind of why you chose this title, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
That we're being able to see exactly where these illusory slash false constructs that they're all around us in these things that we've, not only do we live in one, but all these different systems that we've been operating things on are also rather illusory. and not at all what they purport to actually be.
Yes. Yeah. And so that you could think of them as a giant Matryoshka doll. Everybody knows that, it's the nesting dolls from Russia, right? So
Right.
the false construct is the giant Matryoshka doll, right? And inside that are nested all the other things. You could take the banking system as one, financial system as one. You could take the court system, DOJ as one, so all of those they're all of the whole false construct, and it's all scripted and created and run by what is often, as you say, the ubiquitous they, referred to as the Illuminati, the Cabal, the deep state, or lower level players. But yeah, so again, that's its own Matryoshka doll
Right.
of the hierarchy of the control system of the false construct,
Right.
right? And so, not to get too, but you have those two we'll just call them two sets of Matryoshka dolls, right there.
Mhm.
And um for simple way to describe it, although many people may not agree with that once I start describing it, you could have a third Matryoshka doll, which is the biggest, grandest. It's sources multiverses wide, deep, dense, all that kind of stuff, and that is the truth of who you are as creator beings and eternal essence. So you're an eternal being, and you're the essence of the eternal being, and your source, or, a thread of a ribbon of people use different terms, which is all that is.
Right.
So that's and the first two Matryoshka dolls we talked about are inside of that as well. So
Right.
right here on what's going on the real world, reality, it is not. And so it's breaking down, and very much like if you watch the movie The Matrix or any other kind of thing. What's the movie where he's in his own world and he sails to the edge of the
Oh,
The
that's the
Truman
Truman
Show.
Truman Show, right? So just as that, had the thing where he broke a hole in the thing, went up the stairs, and
Show.
right, and so and that kind of stuff. So all of this is breaking down. It's just like that. Those movies are there for a reason,
The lights are dropping.
because everything, the rule is it has to be hidden in plain sight, and so it is. And so all of the illusory nature of it is breaking down, just very much like if you're walking into a movie theater with a friend who's never been to a movie theater, and you're excited because you like this movie and it's just great and think it could be a good flick to introduce your friend to, and all this kind of stuff, and they're looking around and they're going, because there's action, or there's a teaser going on, and they're kind of freaking out because they're like, there's this big dinosaur or something coming, and you're just thinking, oh, this is great, and your friend's going, great, that thing's gonna eat us, kind of thing. So it's illusory to you, and it, right, and you're jazzed about that, and you either think it has good cinematography, or you think it has really B-rated movie stuff, or you might have a different way, and your friend is like wanting to jump on your shoulders and hide because now there's some other kind of pointy thing coming at them. So, and that's something that people can all relate to. Well, so relate to life and what you think reality is, and all of that is breaking down.
Sorry.
Apparently,
Yeah,
over on
I'm sorry.
screen too.
No, I was trying to fix something and I had to go over to another screen and the speaker was on delay over there. Please continue, BZ. Sorry about that.
Well, I just broke down the whole illusion, so there you go.
You did.
Well, the thing is, I was just notified that the chat wasn't working again. I was wondering where everyone was. And what happens, apparently this didn't happen the other day. It's like intermittent. I don't know. Jennifer, so I know that you're there. So would you please try chatting again now? Apparently sometimes if I don't put something in the chat first, the chat doesn't work.
You have to pop it open, yeah.
Right, which is so weird because the other night I did a live intuitive and I didn't do that, and I don't think I did that, and
But
so
it's a very good example of what we're talking about
yes,
popping open the illusory thing so that they can get in, because that's the chat window, right? Is a collective reality that it needs to be popped open. So for
right,
whatever reason, the system sometimes lets an external part of the group of reality open it up, but otherwise it has to be you.
right. No, I agree. I've said that many times. Thank you so much, you guys, for chatting now, because I've forgotten that this is something I probably need to put on my checklist of what I do every time we go live, is to just
Yeah.
put an initiatory chat in there, welcoming everyone. So I want to acknowledge, thank you, Jennifer, for letting me know, first of all. And Dean Mead has joined us, Revolutioneer has joined us, Laura
Nice.
O'Shea. Please feel free, you guys, to ask questions or interject as I can see the chat now that it's actually working.
Yeah, and if you're while we're talking, if you see a pillar, a section, part of the grand movie theater screen go dark or flicker, hey, let us know.
No, exactly right. I actually did, I did a video earlier today and I shared it. I didn't share it around. I just published it. But and it's just a noticing, and it doesn't really pertain to our conversation other than, some of the tools that I have taken on board from having hanging out with the two of you and expanding my consciousness, noticing and remembering these little puzzle pieces that come into my field assist me in seeing the different portions of the illusory nature of what's going on in different things, because within the matryoshka dolls that I hang out in, I see a whole bunch of different realities, and I see them, crumbling in differing ways. And I'm seeing, just different things that may mean that that portion of that particular illusory system or whatever is breaking down. It may not, but it's a puzzle piece, right? That trusting that this come up in this way today for me.
Was she going robot for you too, BZ? Okay, you were going a little robotic there, honey.
Oh, really?
Well, it's that whole illusory thing.
Illusion.
Wow.
Well,
So
and
yeah, I guess that,
the other thing that's going on, and because we are at the final stages of unwinding and unbinding everything down, and we're going to be in the beginning stages, but we're fully in that of growing and expanding totally new at the same time. So it's not like you're going to look around and go, you think you're in an empty, scene stage set, and there's a couple of tall ladders and a little bit of piping on the floor and a hose because someone's, and everything else is quiet, because it gets brought down and built up at the same time, completely new. You can't use the old pipe wrench or the old costumes, or if you've got the storefront for the bank and whatever, you can't reuse all that kind of stuff because it's not of the same. If we're using a film analogy, it would be old film instead of new digital mastering.
right.
And what I wanted to say too is that layered on all of this is we're at the vibrational vortex where we're having it's actually a trifurcation, but we'll go with the bifurcation of worlds where the frequencies are so divergent now, and they're layered all on one. So if you're here on the world, and you're in one frequency landscape, and someone else is in a denser, much more polarized, much more consciousness constricted thing, and it's going to be, down here, right? There you can be seeing, each 2B can be seeing the exact same thing, like, hey, what's going around in Washington D.C. right this moment, and know it to be completely different things. So that you may look at one actor walk across the stage, and it will be very clear to you what's actually occurring, right? And it'll look similar, but you'll know the nuances. You'll see it. So you'll see someone handing a prop to somebody, whereas the other denser reality will not see that, because the I know I'm mixing metaphors. I'm trying to get the right thing, because the canvas, so the backdrop canvas on the set, is too thick in theirs, and in yours, it's a thinner frequency, so it has less opacity to it, so you can actually see a stagehand walking behind the backdrop, and that's kind of a good way to
Right. And that, for me, that actually has no bearing at all in regards to hierarchy. Because I know a lot of folks have had issue with that. And when I didn't quite grok in regards to what you were speaking on, where, frequency neighborhood, and the frequency where you frequency set point, where one resides, what is that, and what does it all mean? For me, the way I had to translate all of that for me personally was, it's not the right word, but I'm going to use it because it helped me. It is a perspective. And uh, so the perspective in which I view a thing is very, very much related to the frequency set point from where I'm viewing it. I'm either, because I've been both in my life, I'm either looking at something from, and there's way more than these couple of perspectives, but I've narrowed them down for myself in a couple of ways. When looking at something, situation regarding myself, if I'm looking at it from the perspective of a victim, this was done to me, or something along that nature, that's a very different frequency set point. And I'm speaking specifically, like, my past. Yes, I've had things happen to me where that would be a true statement. I was a victim. But I don't see it in that same way. I changed my frequency set point because I truly, at these moments now, can look back there and see where to experience that myself. I made those agreements. Oh, am I robo? Because I see it saying
and every
my
now and then you
connection is
talk really
unstable.
fast to catch up to yourself, which is why I was smiling a minute ago.
But so far I can track what you're saying, which is
Right.
nice.
Right, except that my facial expression didn't match with what the part you were talking about. But do you guys have things you can turn off, because you're loading the system there? So.
I did. I turned mine off. Did you turn your Wi-Fi off, Lisa? so
Well, one of the things that I would
for
just
me,
interject for that is that
yeah,
it's a tool that served you well to use that. But one thing to add to that, if people are trying that on, is that um, the different frequency landscape, the predominant frequency vibrational field. So a landscape is good, because you can have a mountain landscape, and they're not higher, and nobody's better than, less than, right? It's just it's different planes of geography, right? So it just goes like that. So that's
Right.
the landscape is a good way. Um, if you perspective when you talk about just so of victim and stuff, you can also go into a landscape, a frequency landscape that is in that vibrational range of dense energy of all that kind of stuff, yet not be of that.
Right.
You could have been absconded with and plucked into, dropped into that, right, and then work at. So it is um, the way you were describing is right when where you are when you were in that,
Right.
but it doesn't hold us next to someone can be sitting right next to you having a different thing. That's all I'm
Exactly.
saying.
No, exactly correct. That's why I wanted to express it in the way that I was thinking of it, because I know that it's a, and like I said, it's not exactly what you're speaking on, but being, because the new vibrational landscape that's actually already here. Okay.
Firmly here. It's not just at the edges, sneaking in, maybe
No.
thinking about like a little bit of mist in the foggy night coming in. It's it's here.
Right. And the way I've been
Other is
experiencing,
on the is well on its way out, so that would be the reverse. A lot of people
right.
think because it feels that way that all of this boot jack on my throat sort of stuff is now the predominant energy, and the much more pervasive stuff, and the the critical mass of the nothing could be further from the truth.
I was
Nothing.
going to say, yeah, you're absolutely right, because I certainly don't feel that.
Right.
And wouldn't you say that that has to do more with the whole title, choosing love, uh, and see the illusory fields dissolve into the new vibrational,
It
uh,
actually it does on, and that's a I love the way you phrase that question, because it does, yes, on a number of different perspectives, on a number of different um, levels and layers, but also on a number of different, it's timeline's not the right word, time frames not quite the right word either, because out there doesn't get out there until we put it out there, right? So
well,
all the
actually,
boot
actually,
jackness, what?
go ahead.
All the boot jackness stuff we've already put out there a long time. That's why it was even showing up, right? And we
Yeah.
managed to shift around, and now we're so it's like, oh no, that's last year's model. Get that off the set, sort of a thing, because it's gone. So it's not that you might look around, you might turn on the television set if you even have one of those anymore. You might look at these different things and go, wow, that's really the critical mass. It's not. And so to talk about what you were just saying, well, what the title alludes to, and our whole way that we walk, our vibration is held, and then we walk in our individualized reality, and then the collective realities that we create is also showing you that, because you again there's that you can stand right, two people can stand right next to each other, they may even like know each other, right? um and one holds is in a different vibrational landscape than the other, and so the one who's in a much more expansive consciousness level, much more expanded frequency vibration, so it's a faster rate, it's the polarity is less dense, right? So if you've done anything with any kind of, even the simplest of a photo tool thing, editor, you can usually have a little slider that can slide the opacity on a picture, so you can have the full image there, or you could slide the slider down to a lower number, and there'll be less density, so the pinks won't be as pink or the purples won't be as purple, and you can, if there's something behind that, you can start to see what's behind it. So that's what I'm doing. So that's actually a good
Right.
metaphor for understanding this. So it isn't as, but the person standing next to you is absolutely not. They're addicted to the fear that's been, ingrained in them and indoctrinated them, and over the last year pushed on them
Mhm.
big time. And so they're not being able to see. That cloth is so thick they can't see anything else but what's right in front of them. And what's right in front of them is absolutely whole hog an illusory construct, because they're so powerful. They've added to the design that was there, and then they've added to it. So they've thickened the cloth, the wool that's been pulled over the eyes. They've actually made it thicker.
Well, moving in/out/into new earth.
You were frozen,
Yeah,
darling.
so you got to
You
say
have
that
to
again.
start all over. I could see through the curtain, but everybody else.
I got you. Okay, let me try it this time. So let me know if it comes through or not. Jennifer Brown asks, is it that more of us are moving in/out/into new earth?
I would say that more of the beings are firmly rooted over there, and some are still coming back into the old, denser landscape. And a lot of us don't need to keep coming back and forth. Simply by holding it in the new earth, right, holding it in that higher expanded vibration, you actually are shifting things over here. You don't have to have. It's very difficult now to keep going down, to come over and try to go down. When it hadn't, it's accelerated so much now. Used to be you could kind of traverse back and forth, like, people, they commute, they live in out in the country, and they go to the city for work, right? So they could go to the denser congestion, right? That's a good metaphor for it, right? And then they could come home and be relaxed, and so a lot of people who were awake, a lot of light workers, truthers, however you want to say it, if you're going to segment them in different places, we're doing that. And that's that time has passed to need to do that, because there was that's part of the bifurcation, right? It's actually a trifurcation, but we'll just stick with it. That's part of the bifurcation, to not go down, to continue to step down is too hard on the, just strictly if you go from just the physical vessel, the tangible physical vessel view, it's way too hard, because because everything keeps stepping up, and if you keep driving down, it's like stuffing yourself in a tiny little hole and coming back out. Stretching is, it's too hard on the mechanism of your vessel.
Well, I know what you're speaking on there for myself. Some may not, uh, and I hope everyone does, because I have experience with that. We've got that on camera from a
Right.
couple of years ago when I was trying to put myself in situations where the frequential aspect, the density was quite different. There's a real shearing effect. There was way I wasn't equipped for handling stepping out of one frequential neighborhood into the other. Didn't do so great on my body or for any of the folks involved, because wasn't, I don't know, it was just not a good scene.
Well,
Um,
to
Well,
answer Jennifer's question, though, sorry, to answer Jennifer's question is that my sense with her, as one example in particular, that maybe her brain is telling her she needs to keep stepping down, but her soul is telling her, no, we need to stay right here. You need to stay in this, because that's where you can be of service, in here. Sorry, Lisa, I just wanted to add that in before I forgot.
okay.
no, I think
Well,
that's beautiful.
let's see if I can remember.
Lisa, did you?
um, yeah, there's so much this has triggered so much that wants to come out that I have a bottleneck issue. Um, okay, let
I'll
me
just take,
I just, am I Robo?
No, go.
Okay. Um, so I just wanted to say that for me, this is where love comes into the picture. This is where I'm going to call love my superpower. So when, and I'm going to say being in the world, but not of it means this, that I stay squarely in my superpower of love at all times. So that means I have my love goggles on and I don't take them off because so for being in the world, I can be in the world with my love goggles on, which means I know exactly who and what I am. Love, personified, embodied, walking the planet Earth. That is also love, personified, embodied as this beautiful planet that wants to play the game of life with me. Okay. Now, yes, there happens to be another sub game, we'll call it, going on planet Earth. But it's finite, meaning it doesn't exist beyond me, which is infinite. So for starters, then I know that's what makes it illusionary. So I can identify with the small finite portion of my experience as the all that is and be of the world. And that is to wear those goggles that you were speaking of, that you can't see beyond what this physical, illusionary, finite world is telling me is all that is.
Right.
But when I put on my love goggles, now I see that I exist beyond what is illusionary, or I'll say what is ever changing, which is finite. Changes when I have my love goggles on, I can see that the out there changes according to the in here. And so now I can traverse that bridge and I can be in any neighborhood, if you will, but always at home, which is in my own peace and love bubble that knows exactly who and what I am and where I am and why I'm here.
Right.
And so from that perspective, then there is nothing to be in conflict with. And so now I have access to all that is in this finite moment of now. I'm accessing the unlimited of all that is.
Let me
well,
just,
and what,
let me just use this for a minute to as a I think this might help. So this is Lisa. This is her field and her vibrational landscape, right? Which is a more expansive one. It's a wider aperture on the consciousness of, and so you could say if we were using it in the metaphor. So this is the world. So she's in the world, but not of it, right? And these are superimposed on top of each other.
Mhm.
So it used to be that you actually left this landscape and went back into this landscape, right? And
Okay.
what just another way to say what Lisa's saying is by holding steady her energy field, it does not move. She can
No.
she can go to a whole range of landscapes. She can you think of, because they're superimposed each other, she can like go through the paper to the next paper below, and
right,
and that vibrational landscape stays there. She has, so in other words, that's why boundaries are important. That's why that vibrational wall around you, right, which is impervious not to you giving love or being of service or
No.
any of that kind of stuff, but is
Right.
impervious to any other lower discordant frequency being able to infiltrate it, being able
It
to,
nullifies in my field.
right.
It becomes one with love. It returns to its source.
And
Yeah.
so that's the difference. It's a little bit of a perceptual difference depending on how you hold it, but it also means that you have that locked in, right? And so when you do that, um, you may notice an experience come by, or you may call to you an experience that comes by, and there may be some old, like a for some reason the idea of a diver diving underwater and the air bubbles rising up, there might be an old piece of distortion within you that kind of bubbles up when it meets something else. And so um, the video that's coming of the way, one of the ways that you were describing the other day, Lisa, your whole field of holding that love field surrounds that molecule or that big air bubble of whatever that is, that, right, that's discordant, and kind of is able to put it on the shelf and look at it and spin it all around, and then in a way that is integrational, it pops it. And so the experience that was helpful, that was the expansive part of the experience, is now part of all of you, and the rest can just, like a little bit of steam rising, in a pot that's
Yeah.
boiling, it can and go off. And so
Mhm.
that's where you have the bifurcation of worlds, that people are holding more and more, who are in firmly in the fifth dimensional landscape. They're there all the time,
Mhm.
right? And they see other things and they watch other things going on. They can still hold this, see what's going on, and instead of going to the frustrated or the fear or the pissed offness or whatever it is, which are lower, denser, more polarized frequency, or effervescent bubbles, if you want to look at it that way, it's rock solid in this vibrational landscape. And so it actually pulls, just as Lisa was doing, those molecules out of that situation and just disperses them. They go back into pure energy. And so actually the whole boat, right, all the landscapes are all rising.
Yep.
Exactly correct. Well, Fawn added that we're all opening the portal around us to source the I am, the infinity of love that surrounds us and shines to all.
Yes,
And
and that's
Jennifer
very
said she
important.
loves that description of love surrounding the molecule.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And what Fawn was just saying is also very important, because it's our way to feed ourselves on if we're not firmly yet into self, because the love flow is self-generative, right? Just like deep breath is self-generative, it actually
Yes.
oxygenates all of your physical body but all of your other bodies, right? And so
Right.
until we're practicing, we've gotten rid of the distortions off of those, from within us, we by going to source, by going and making that, we actually, it's interesting because we don't have to go to source, we are source, but sometimes we have a maybe a narrowing of the corridor that's a direct link to source, or the thought of that, where that's right, it's all the
Mhm.
illusion that way, that's the illusory part.
Right.
And so by going up, we're kind of firming that up, we're widening the corridor again, pulling in more flow of that, and it helps us. And that's why in a second you can do it, you can just, the metaphor that I had the other day, you sit on the rock for a minute, you say, whoa, I'm just gonna sit here for a minute. And I'm gonna catch my breath and reignite that flame within me.
Well, Jennifer Brown picked up on some of what you were speaking there in regards to love and boundaries, and she thought it'd be great if we could speak a little more on that. But I wanted to add to that. So for me, you guys know that I've talked a lot about the fact that languaging is a pretty tricky thing, and what I've come to feel for myself is that we all speak a version of our own language, even though it may be the same. There's three of us here, and we're all speaking English, but it's actually a bit of a perspective on English. And if we can all in some way take that in for ourselves and and just know that, because the English that we speak is based on our experiences of the words, and that produces particular feelings and thoughts and situations for us as we communicate. And because we are all so uniquely different and separated only by the experiences that we've had in our physical vessels, that's what I base my supposition, my theory on, that we all speak a different language. So when Lisa says that she is in, has her love bubble, right? And that she is love, that for me is the big love. That's when you speak on that, Lisa, I see the big all encompassing love that includes everything. That love absolute, because I've watched you do exactly what you were speaking on there in
And
regards.
maybe mother's love is a better way to describe it. I mean, everybody's, at least if not have
Well, I don't know. In this
experience,
dysfunctional world,
you've
I wouldn't go
witnessed,
there.
you've witnessed it.
I,
No,
nah,
me personally,
that's
I wouldn't go there. No, love
Okay,
absolute is where I would stick.
if you know me at all, you've experienced it.
yes, yes, but that's why I brought it up in exactly this way. See, the minute you said that, it's great
Yeah,
for you. It's a great example for you. I'm
right.
over here like, not much,
I can't relate to the word. Right, right.
But
right?
one of
So
the things too that you were saying, Sheila, is that yes, I agree with what you're talking about, the different language, same language, different things, except it's a frequency thing, because you can
Yes.
read something, and actually all three of us have had this thing with one particular person's documents, right? Have read them, and the brain is going, okay, that's the language. I know
Yeah.
that language. I'm reading this language. My brain is going, right? But my body is going, yes, I
yeah,
know it. It's fantastic. And someone's sitting next to you and going, what? Because they can tell you're all juiced, and they're going, what? I don't know. Beats the hell out of me. I don't know what the fuck is that, right?
no,
And
yeah,
and
it's
then they say, but you just said, oh yeah, no, I'm totally there. So right?
right,
Yes.
So it's a
exactly,
frequency thing. So yes, you could, if you're going to get hung up on because you're only brainywacking it, right,
right,
to the language. But if you actually mean it, that's why I call it a meaning it. You're connecting with it. You're actually coming into connection with it. Then you can feel it. You can parse out the this and that and the participle and the who's a flu and all that kind of stuff if you want to, but it's meaning it because that's the universal language. See, that's why you can meet beings from all other different civilizations, because you're meeting them, you're actually coming into connection subject to one another, and that's a frequency thing.
Mhm.
And that's what was prompting me to have the title come forth that way, because that's how it breaks down the illusoriness of what is going on, and actually dissolves the illusion for others. So if someone is, as Lisa was giving a wonderful example of, standing in the field, right? She's not doing anything to anyone else. She's in her own singularity and sovereignty, just emitting this. If someone's standing right next to her or within the block or the city block or whatever it is, chooses to pick up on it. So it's always a choosing. Now that it's been, instead of oxygenated, it's been lovinated, right? And it has shifted the molecular structure, shifted the frequential structure in the landscape there, and then go, oh yeah. They may not be able to, on an intellectual thing or a thought process or a verbiage sort of a way, but they know it here. And that's why it's multicultural, multi-language, multi-planetoid, right? Multi-dimensional, multi-level vibrational landscape
Right.
perspective.
Well, and I would encourage this because when I first read your title, honestly, what came to me was, and I forget, and I think this was Glenn Beck telling the story about his dad. But there is something to this. More and more, getting back to the love. I have so much I want to say, so pardon me while I
Take your
try to start
time.
it all out.
Go right ahead.
So forgive me. Um, Putting the love goggles on is a good way for me to remember to do this, which means to do this. It reminds me that this is a stance I have to take. This is, it's active loving. And I have to actively love myself and then emanate that love to all things as myself. And so, the more that I consciously play with putting on these love goggles and swimming around, I'm sure I can't remember the movie, but maybe Sheila will, where the guy puts on the glasses and then suddenly he can see the subliminal messaging that's everywhere, like it says
It's called
obey.
They Live. Yes. You haven't
Uh,
seen it yet. We were trying to find it so I could share it with you. It's called They Live.
I never.
well, I'm going to call those goggles love goggles,
Right.
because love goggles allow you to see what is. Because see, the trouble with a belief system is if we believe we have everything figured out, or that this is all there is, or anything that you believe in takes shape, it must take shape in front of you.
Yeah, I need you to speak up just a little bit because sometimes your voice gets lost when you trail off. Just I don't want anybody to miss what you're saying here.
Okay. Yeah, what was I saying here?
You were saying that anything that you do, it takes shape.
The yes, so the frequency bubble that you hold actually materializes right out in front of you. And when you hold the love goggles, or let's just say the position that I am all that is, and to me that's love, because that is also source. So that's another way maybe to hold it. But so when I am walking through the world from my I am perspective or with my love goggles on, I now have no longer limited myself to what is in my belief system and or dogma, or like let's just take for instance what we're told from the media. um if I believe in that, if that is my belief, then I cannot see anything above or beyond or below or inside or anything else, because my belief stops that um, vision from taking place. The love goggles bypasses any of that facadery stuff. And I can see the facade, yes, but I can also see through it and around it and underneath of it, and I can see what it's made of, and I can talk to it.
Can I
So,
interject one quick thing in here? Because you said something very important that I don't want you to lose in this, or
okay.
anybody else's. So, when you were describing how you got to this place of being able to put on the love goggles, right, and use them, and that they weren't just something kind of hanging on you, but they were now part of you, right? They were
Yes.
you.
Yes.
you had to love yourself, right?
Yes.
You had to clean out the closet of all that flopsing and jetsam and shit that you put in there, other people put in there, right? Just
Yes.
everybody's just right. So
Yep.
that the reason I want to bring this forward because that ties in very well to the distortions, to the belief system, to all those kinds of things. That's why make no mistake, but most people in various forms and iteration have a trouble loving themselves. The idea of loving oneself is blasphemy. I'm sorry,
Yes.
but that's really the word to describe it.
Yeah.
Or that's selfish, or that's you should put others in front. All this is some just like with the mask thing now, being that your virtue signaling about being somehow something else to somebody else when you're slitting your own throat and putting a boot jack on it. So I
Yeah.
just want to bring that out. That's why this has worked so well. This whole false construct, the whole illusory part that we're bringing down has worked so well because that was the programming. And in that was a belief system and all these rails of thought that you were riding on. And then lest you jump off that rail because you had an expansive thought or a heart centered thought, right, that comes from the heart brain, then the system didn't have to curtail you because you had, all the brown shirts next to you giving you a shock and putting you back on, or giving you a shock for getting uppity and starting to feel for yourself from the heart, and they added more stuff to your closet which you had to then. So what Lisa's talking about is you can start to wear those love goggles the way she's describing it. And so you can be really, they're firmly on, they work great, they're part of you, they are you. And until you're looking over, over on all these areas here, and then you look at this one part and it's like, where'd my love goggles go? I don't feel that anymore because there's a pocket, as I talk about the bubble, that distortion, and that's a place just to work. And it doesn't mean you go back to square one, any of those kinds of things. It's just that's where you can let part of you, well, I don't know if you did know, what would you know, what would the answer be, and bring the rest of you over to align those. Sorry, Lisa. So you were talking about how putting that on and you can then change your field so it pops out in front of you.
Yeah, I mean, everything changes. It dissolves away the illusions because I can see them clearly for what they are and I understand them. And I don't have enemies. There's no enemies. I see the wholeness of it and how things click together, and I have great and tremendous peace within. And so I right now already, yes, am living in the fifth dimension. All of Earth for me right now is fifth dimension. I see it and feel it and breathe it everywhere that I go. And what I am noticing is a tremendous amount of love and opening and awakening. And there were times when I thought it was hopeless and it would never happen for humanity, an impossibility. And now I laugh at that because I can't hide it from myself anymore. How magnificent we are. The fact that we are experiencing what we are now experiencing today says it's over. Because if it wasn't, we wouldn't know. That's how these things operate in the shadows. Because once it is seen, it disappears, it evaporates, it has no power.
That's right.
And so the fact that we are getting, um, our eyes full of this right now is because it is over and this is the cleanup job. And that makes my heart feel so light. I feel like I could fly.
So there's about 4 people who just about fell over when you said that, Lisa. What? Like what? What? Wait a minute. You're talking about the razor wire around the state, the White House and all that kind of. Yes, That's exactly what that and a whole bunch of other stuff is exactly what she's talking about. And and the same thing when you're having, when you're having something like the secretary saying, um, well, we should get, give us the questions ahead of time so we can be prepared. All these kinds of things, which are so ludicrous and insane. But it's that same kind of thing. It's the breaking down of the illusion. It's like stuttering. It's missing a step. It's coming up with the inane and the ludicrous, not because it's part of a laugh track, but because it's just the program is eating itself. Right? It's just breaking down.
Well, I maintain and will continue to maintain that what is happening is that Sheila's getting the answer to the question that I posed in my conversation with
So
Dan.
funny. I heard you saying that in my head just a minute ago.
I know you did because that I keep coming back to that. I am getting the answer to my question. How do you tell an entire planet of people that everything they have ever believed, been taught, or thought was not exactly what they thought or were taught or believed? It is in some ways twisted and wrong and just not even true at all, or at least just little piece twisted here or there,
Or
um,
totally inverted, which is a lot of.
inverted. There's no way to tell people. They have to see it for themselves. You can say it, you can try to blue pill folks till you're blue in the face, and it never works. And all it really does is, which is again back to the earlier part of the conversation when we were talking about me trying to step out of what I was just learning, not even really having a good grasp on what I was learning, and trying to then offer it to others who, by the way, didn't want it, didn't even want to see it or hear about it or even think about it. You're just a crazy old lunatic. And so, you can't, we just can't. It doesn't work like that. And it's actually, now I understand it completely. It's not meant to. Part of it is because I don't know how this person over here has originally set their creation of their experience to actually go and play out. Perhaps they wanted exactly what it is they're experiencing right now. Otherwise, I don't think they'd be experiencing it.
Well, and think of the if you think of the metaphor, the actuality, but also the metaphor of being of service. So, if you're in a good restaurant and you're sitting down at the table and you're gonna have a meal, a bunch of big group of friends and all that kind of stuff. And so, in a restaurant, I'm not talking about good in as far as the price or anything. I'm talking about where the staff is actually intuitive to what your needs are. They're not at your table every 5 seconds going, well, do you need something else? They're not doing that. First of all, they don't have time because it's a good restaurant, so there's lots of going on. But they're tuned into you, so they may glance and catch a hand movement or feel a sense because they can pick up, and they may not describe it this way, but it's what they're doing. They can pick up the energy that you're thinking about the next course, or could you have another glass of water, whatever it else it is. And in their rotation around their section that they're working, they'll come a little closer and just smile, and then that makes the connection in a physical way. And someone says, oh, could I have some water, whatever, and it sure be right back. And so there's this whole dance that they're doing. So, in that same kind of way, you don't need to keep coming over to these particular friends or these particular relatives or whatever it is, and keep saying, well, hey, did you want more of this? This is more about the precious metals thing, or this is more about this, or your knowingness and your fullness in your love absolute, right, is breaking fully, completely broken down the illusory nature for you. And because of that, more of you has come in, and it just is widening exponentially the field that you hold firmly, deliciously in love absolute, which is a feeling and a sense and a vibrational rate beyond anything else. And so you're emitting that. And now you're going through, same restaurant, you're going through that, and it's, little effervescence of this is coming off of you. Then when someone says, okay, you've passed by my table 8 times, and there's something about I don't know what you're doing, but there's just, it's, what is it? So now you can be of service because they've said, garçon, could I have, right? They've
Mhm.
now asked you, and because you're attentive, although not, okay, we got precious metals, we got this, we got that, we got this,
Yeah, it's a whole different ball game once
you're not
once
slamming the
I
water
work.
glasses down on the table or coffee cups, right? And
Yeah.
that's what the being of service is about.
Well,
Service to yourself as other and service to others.
well, see, that's just it though. But BZ, I have to say that I would never have actually grokked it without the actual, and I think I finally was able to grok it in because of the underlying energetic that's coming into the planet in regards to freedom, self-reliability, self-responsibility, uh, all of that is sovereignty,
Right.
that energetic of sovereignty.
Mhm.
Well, I wouldn't have been able to be in that place where I can sit and allow someone else to come to me if they want a little bit of what I got going on, because I was too busy saying, but if you only knew what was going on, you wouldn't do this or you wouldn't do that. I was so, but I didn't have that piece, that one piece that you and Lisa very specifically, for me, it's very important to this entire title, and that is to finally grok it for myself that we all get to choose as the all that is, as that which set all of this up for myself to experience. I can't give that to myself and then not say, oh, well, Lisa chose to come here and have a very specific experience. And it's not going to be anywhere remotely like mine because guess what? That's the point of the whole thing of coming here to begin with. We can get the everybody doing the same stuff when we're not having a an experience of separation, because that's what this is. That's the whole point of this, the whole point of the game to begin with. It got a little wonky because the
Just
game itself, it went off the rails in some pretty horrific ways, but we're changing that now. And part of that changing is the coming to the truth of who we are, that we are all one and yet singular. We're meant to have an experience all our own. And just by the very nature of realizing that it is meant to be exactly like that. And every being gets to choose how they wake up, if they even wake up, if they want to suffer. Now I'm gonna stop right there because everybody jumps all over that and says, well, I don't want to suffer, and yet here I am. You have to sit with that for yourself because I had to sit with it for myself because I was suffering and I was doing it to myself.
all the times that I've been absolutely in a place of suffering, um, the way that I got out of it was to choose love. And I had to be down. Sometimes I had to ride it all the way to the deepest, darkest bowels of it to choose that, right? And that's how I got out of it. And
Well, knowing what I
unfortunately, I
know
kept
now,
doing that
too.
in various iterations, but but I just
Well,
want to say, source is going forth to no source.
mhm.
Source is all things and no thingness, the totality of infinity, right? So that's a lot of source if each little finger, multiplied by, I don't even have, can't think of the number, right? Quadrillions, something or other. There you go. If source is going forth to know source, that means every facet, every nuance, of the whole range of allness, not one piece missing. And since it's infinite and there's expansion that's always constant, guess what? The not one piece missing in this nanosecond is half as many not one piece missings in the next half a nanosecond, right? Because it keeps expanding. So that's another visual for your point, Sheila, is that everybody's going forth to know source. So it's not like, well, one's got the right, that's the right source going to no source, and this one here is the wrong. Well, source would take umbrage of that because source is everything and all things. So
Right.
not one piece missing,
Yeah.
not
And that's been the
anything
biggest,
missing.
that's been the biggest trick of all that we pulled on ourselves, by the way. And I want to say kudos to all of us because it's a pretty big deal that we all pulled this off because I have a feeling that at some point in the history, we knew the truth of who we are. And when we entered this game, okay, uh, there was probably those that said, we're never going to forget who we are. It's
Really,
not
how's
going
that
to
even
work.
possible? Right.
I don't even know how that's possible, but we did it. We absolutely did it. And so now for me anyway, and listen, I'm not going to sit here and say that this is the game that we're going to play now. I'm saying the game I want to play now because no hostages on my in my game, on my journey whatsoever. You don't got to play my game. I don't want anyone coming to play my game that doesn't want to play my game because that wouldn't be fun for me. So I feel like in the new earth, that we call it that, in the new vibratory fields, the as we choose love and see the illusory fields dissolve, the new vibrational field around me that I'm interested in developing and moving forward is co-creative collective community. Uh, come Carrying the truth of who I am and getting to play in that vibrational, uh, landscape, knowing that I am a portion of the all that is, a very unique portion of the all that is, and bringing all of that to form. And I would have never been able to do all of that, by the way, without pulling in folks that were willing to do this sort of a thing too, right? I mean, helping me in these ways expand my consciousness to even know that that's what I wanted to do.
Well, and you didn't specifically say it, but I'm gonna assume's not the right word, but I'm gonna say that it was tacitly in there in
Okay.
doing all that you described, that new game, but doing it in physical full embodiment. So in other words, a new being totally. So source, yes, and human, a human, yes, but merged, so the fantastical and just the walking around, in the t-shirt, all at the same time, right? And because it's all conscious, and because it's all knowing, and there's full, absolute full recall, right? And because you're continually expanding, and you're, that beacon, that it's this, the picture that comes, image comes to mind, it's this combination of a crystal ball and a magic ball, and a replicator, sort of a thing from Star Trek, all in one, of your love absolute, that's right in the center of you here when all of this is going on. So you are source embodied, so it means you have You know everything. You remember everything. You have that's all there, right? And you also are pretty cool at walking around in the t-shirt, right? And knowing how all these things work and these odd, the density and the different things and a little bit of because polarity will will compared to what we're used to seemingly totally disappear. It won't. It will be, it'll be very similar bandwidths and polarity, right? But there will be a little bit of difference because you'll go into higher vibrational landscapes to where that will evaporate. But I'm talking about right here. So when you're having that's now this is a completely new being that has all of those. I mean, I've been saying it to myself for decades now. Well, hell, I can entertain myself for eons doing that. So let's come on. I want to start now. Because there are so many permutations and combinations and things you can play, and you can play find some individuals or groups of people who want to play that game and some don't want to do it, so you can again continually keep entertaining and creating and being of service and having expansion. I mean, just think if you were interested in plants, all the different things you could play with the plants in how they wanted to morph and change things, or animals, or um, uh, magical powers, or any various iterations. How you make energy do different things, or different like the laws of nature and physics are shifting and changing because the molecular structure is shifting and changing. So pick any one tiny little piece, right? There's so many people on the planet right now have hobbies of this and this and this and this. And it's fascinating if you've never knew any of those kind of things. Like, when I started here, I started brewing beer, and I'm not much of a drinker, but and so I went on this thing called, the homemade brew boards. Who thought? I mean, forget religion being serious. This was serious kind of stuff, right? And then I for the part of the game that I was playing in that I was learning how to make non-alcoholic beer, and people would say, well, what was even the point? I said, no, work with me here. This is the game I'm playing. I'm taking the hops I'm growing, and I'm making the beer, and now I have to make it non-alcoholic. Well, they got into even though they would never touch a donut, but they got into the whole science, and they were fascinated. So on these boards now, they're working on things. So the reason I bring that forward is anything that just as basic as a hobby, and some of them are, depending on if it's new to you, pretty outlandish, wild, wacky hobbies, right? There's so many things. The creativity and the resourcefulness and the desire to play with all manner of things in the human being that has been so, using this in quotes, downtrodden and put upon and stifled, and their creativity and their inspiration and their insight and their intuition has been so bootjacked and so compressed and condensed, and still look at all of the wondrous stuff, right? Now
Yep.
you take off the yoke of all this other stuff. You take off that, and you stand from each being in a choice of love, and the illusory nature falls down. Holy smokeroonie, man, we've got so much playing to do. I mean, it's going to take eons just to get the first little bits of spark of play going. It's
Well,
spectacular.
that's that's why I think that being open to just what you said, new things. I love the way that story that you shared there, BZ. And now I can see. I don't know why, but this is always whenever you talk about stuff like that, I remember my very first conversation with BZ, y'all. BZ did a creator, was it a cosmic creator call, a series of cosmic creator calls, and the first words out of my mouth were, I don't think I belong here, because I jumped straight to the fantastical, but that is actually what is required in these
Yes.
moments, because it's all new.
Yes.
It's all new. And so if we just open, this is why for me, the bottom line, the absolute bottom line to any of it is just being open to considering a new idea, a new thought, a new feeling, a new belief, a new piece of information. It doesn't matter actually what it is, just being open to allowing these things to come into your field even, and not now. So for me, what I'm also trying to, as I allow these new things to come into my field, not to immediately pigeonhole it with a label or a judgment about it at all either, because I know for me, I'm working on the deprogramming and deconditioning myself from 59 years of incorrect information, incorrect, twisted, colored a certain way so that I will think and feel a certain way. We've all had this, bar none. And it just depends on, where you are, your age, uh, some of your upbringing as to exactly how that programming and conditioning is there, but it's there for all of us. And so as these things come in for me, I'm really trying to be as vigilant as I can to make sure and catch myself. That's the other thing. I'm not going to be mad at myself because I do still catch myself. Uh, Put pigeonholing, labeling, and judging a new idea or anything like that that comes in that goes against some of that old programming. I immediately, it feels like now, because I'm getting really used to catching those sorts of things, and then asking myself some questions about that. So being open to those sorts of things is really for me just paramount and key. It's like the first step to all of it.
The what you're talking about is it's a palpable energetic now. It's been around. It's been around for a long time, but it's really been pervasive in all beings, all souls, planet wide for the last good 2 or 3 weeks anyways, and it's ramping up, and I played with it a little in a really short quantum porch sitting I did this morning, and it's that juxtaposition between the openness, right, and the release of some release of beliefs, release of all those different things, but where you're dancing, because as you do one, open to something or releasing something, it actually cleans out and polishes up old distortions and brings in the new creations or vice versa, and so you're going around and you're realizing that you're not reaching back. If something you say needs fixing, right, you can easily come around in that juxtaposition dance that there's nothing needs fixing because it's already working astonishingly beautifully, right? You're
Right.
seeing that not working so great for you now, but right. And
Right.
so then you realize that you can reach out to openness, release the thing that you're going to pull back from something and fix, and open to something is new. And it's that expansive bubble. The bubble keeps expanding.
Right.
And so we're not, and right now, um compelled I think is a good word to describe. We are all each, because of the forces of those energetics that we're swimming in, that we're navigating, that we're being immersed in, okay, that we seem to be drowning or blubbling, in it sometimes too, of that very compelling, very like an agitator in a washing machine, right? And the spiral of it, we're being very compelled by the juxtaposition of those two things, the openness and the release, the openness and the releases, and it's expanding. And that's part of how we wind and unbind all of the old down and bring the new out, so that it gets
Right.
to the new gets to a certain threshold, and then we just are quantum jumping each half life from there.
Well, I love something Fawn shared it. It's a beautiful time to be alive, and we have all come here for this time to witness and be a part of the new creation of this earth. And I could not agree
Absolutely.
more.
No, how much fun is that? quite
I
beautiful.
know. I agree. I agree. She
And
also just said, I love photography. And when I snap a picture, I know it's capturing that moment in time that will never be again, nor will it ever look the same as the next picture that I take. And I don't know if you caught that conversation that we had, Fawn, but it also mixes with your frequency and your love of what you are gazing at and taking the picture of. I've seen the proof of that. I've seen the proof of that. The difference between my photography and Lisa's photography of the same item. It's very interesting how that goes. It translates through your lens. I think, you know, I feel like that because I've seen that.
absolutely, yeah, I know it does with the photographs I see. It's something interesting that Fawn just said in what you were reading. When I was going for my um, Xander's first big boy walk in the big forest, off leash and stuff, and it was very Avatar esque. So I wanted to bring it forward because we're, as we all three of us have said in different ways in this conversation, that we're firmly in the new earth and we're there, right? And love absolute is abounding, and it's just wonderful. And it, for me, it shines no more clearly in a place where there isn't any pressure or bubbles of distortion are coming through. So like in this forest, there happened to be, in where I was walking, was along this great river, the Sauk River, and there was nobody in that section of where I was. Big trees and everything, and part rainforest and all this kind of stuff. Actually, there were two people who were at 38 degrees. They were skimboarding or something, standing on top of a surfboardy looking thing with a paddle, going down the whitewater rapid. Yeah, really. With the snow, just chasing them down the river. But anyways, but aside from those two people on land, there was just me and the two dogs, and it was very Avatar-esque. The trees were carrying on the most wonderful conversations amongst themselves, and then were taking with us, and watching the puppy just look around and thinking, he's there feels like there's a lot of dogs all around, or there's a lot of people all around, and I can't see him, but he could sense he was in knew that he was in this really crowded magical place. And so, and you can experience the same kind of thing in the middle of the city or whatever it is. It's just how you hold your field, and then how you can expand, as Lisa was talking about, her, that love bubble, those goggles transmit a force field, right? And it envelops it around. And so the more that we can appreciate that, and be subject to one another, those energetic envelopes, those landscape bubbles, frequency landscape bubbles, the more that we can hold them, and that we can create them so that they actually co-join with mine and Lisa's and Sheila's and everybody else on this call, and all around the whole planet and above and beyond in all of Source's multiverse. Because that's what we're doing. It's not just this planet that all of this is happening in, it's all. And
Right.
we affect, what we are doing here, what we are bringing to fruition here, what we're unwinding and unbinding here, because each entity, each being is multidimensional. So you can put your hands in all sorts of directions. It affects all.
Yep. I couldn't agree more. Wow. Well, does anyone have any questions for us, or did you guys? There's, they're chatting a little bit between themselves. I love all of you guys, and but I don't really see any questions. Kevin was noting the Rowdy Roddy Piper is part of They Live. Yes, it is. It's a really good movie for those of you that haven't seen that. Um, I think it's quite interesting, and I found it was kind of interesting that this movie, made in the 80s, is not easy to find right now. And, make of that what you will, if you like. I just find it a little interesting. So we have a bit of a delay too in the chat. So I wanted to make sure if anyone had any questions. I really appreciate both of you. Is there anything else you'd like to add to this particular conversation?
I would say consciously, if you're not already feeling it and playing with, as Lisa says, the love goggles, or just enveloping yourself, holding yourself in that space, holding that space in you, right? Inviting others to partake in you by doing nothing, simply by being you. If you aren't already doing that, then just find a moment here, there, wherever you are, whatever part during your day, and set the intention, and then carry it forth for 2 minutes or 5 minutes to absolutely do that
And Lisa?
and see how it changes.
Oh, I agree. I think you should play with that one and see what changes. Really just play with observing um, not only your love goggles, but what happens when you wear them. Changes everything.
To you
Well,
and all around.
well,
Yeah.
I'm sensing a question, and and maybe it's from Jennifer Brown because she asked it originally.
Okay.
But so this may actually be an entirely different video or a different conversation, but when you're holding the love goggles, the love absolute goggles,
Mm-hmm.
can you speak a little bit, Lisa, too? Because you also, I know you, okay, because we live together, we cohabitate, and I know that you have boundaries. This is, holding your love bubble does not mean becoming a doormat either. So this is also because a lot of
Far
people
from
will
it.
go, well, but
Very far from it.
I'm sorry, PC, say
Very,
again.
very far from it. In fact,
Yeah.
the exact, you couldn't have a definition for the exact opposite.
Right. And I'm in agreement with you. However, I'm just saying that this is when, okay, speaking from personal experience, when one doesn't have good boundaries in place, again, that's something I did. And then things happen. Well, I didn't have any boundaries in place. And then when I first started setting up some boundaries for myself, I found myself constantly stepping over my own damn boundary because of whatever and what all, right? So I think that Jennifer had a very valid point, and I was wondering if the two of you might share a little bit, because I know that you both have boundaries that you stick to, and so please share a little bit about that.
Yeah. Well, thank you for bringing that up, Sheila, because I guess really that's the most important part of this, really. Because it's fierce dedication to self and self responsibility. That's what love is. And so a lot of times things happen and we'd say, oh my gosh, and this person did this and that. And so I'm a victim of them. Or you could actually know that everything that happens to you happens for a reason. And so you take responsibility for what happens to you and you look for the reason. And then you do the necessary changes within in order to accommodate the changes you are looking for without. And when you do that, it's so easy. These others in the world have no effect over me. I mean, literally have no effect over me. If somebody could come at me with the intention of causing trouble, but my field will nullify for me. I will only experience what matches my frequency. And so I'm telling you now that I erect my boundaries through my frequency. So in order for something to touch me, I have to be a match frequentially to that. So I hope that's answering the question.
Well, it does and it doesn't, and only because of
So,
what
so give me a for instance. That helps.
well, for me personally, as you know, because well, I agreed to do all this out loud, so there's that.
Okay, yes.
As I started, um, being fiercely devoted to me
Mm-hmm.
and looking at me only, because I realized that I can't fix any damn body else. That
Right.
doesn't work. Ask me how I know. I'm glad to share with you all the folks I've tried to do that to, who just ran screaming the other way because it weren't my place, and that kind of thing, right? So
Yeah.
there's that. um, and so as I started becoming just fiercely dedicated to me
Yes.
and looking at all of the things that rubbed me the wrong way, created those trigger reactions and those sorts of things, well, a lot of those things had to do with either the wrong boundaries or no boundaries or not sticking to the boundaries that I set up for myself and all of these sorts of things. And then it was just me being pissed off at everybody else for violating the boundaries that, oh, wait a minute, I'm the one that set them up. And therefore I'm the one that actually see what I mean, where I'm going with this. So as I was learning about myself, and it's still a big work in process as I look at those things that trigger
Yeah.
me. Is there a boundary that I need to adjust, and what all and whatever, right? So I don't have it's not exactly in my frequential field yet because it's something sort of new that I'm just discovering now. I'm getting better at it now, but I'm bringing it this way because I know I have this feeling that there are those that have experienced exactly what I'm speaking on, what I've experienced. You go through life and you think you have some pretty good boundaries in place until you look around, or at least me, I look around and almost every area that I would be triggered in or about, I can now take a look at and say, oh, hold up. I had either a very poorly erected boundary that wasn't exactly the right kind or the right thing for me, and or most often I would step over my own boundary and proceed, and that causes issues for me personally every single time. But I before I woke up to what I was doing, I wanted to blame everybody else, you
Well, you
see.
can also have frequential pocket boundaries or zones. So I'll let Lisa go first, and then I can give an example of it.
No, go right ahead.
Yeah. Sure.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, so you can be doing a really good job of deciding where your core is, your true north is, your heart expansion is. So just everybody disappears, right? You got it all going on, you got it set, and then you go, okay, great. Now I can't stay in the woods right here because I have to go do other things. So how do I then take me, be me, right? Fully envelop me, and with all of me coming into me, and then I'm supposed to be going forth to know source. Hey, means I gotta, go forth and do this, right? So that's where the boundaries come in. And so you can be doing really well, maybe in a whole full spectrum. And then you realize that, but in one area, maybe it's just one area of work or one area of your life or all of work, or so so give it one segment of something that you're doing on a job. I'm going to use that as an example, right? Or in a work situation, and the boundaries are still there, but things are going on where they're there's been some flex. You've given some flex. You have chosen to give some flex to something going in those boundaries because in that moment it fit the situation, a targeted situation in the work area, um, that that met your highest drive, your highest heart's desire in that moment to come in. Does that making sense so far?
Mhm.
So there's one section. And so you were okay with, you gave, your consciously gave permission to flex those boundaries a little bit there. And then because there seemed to be, a lot of these things that kept going on, the flexing got to be autopilot and no longer consciously choosing, right? And it was this thing until you discovered um, that it was untenable. And so the boundaries were working everywhere else. The full in coreness was working everywhere else. In fact, expanding, right? Enlargement, except for this one, like this anomalic bubble where this was. And so you may feel that it's causing a lot of frustration or making you more tired. It can manifest in various different ways. And when you can take and a common thing to then do is to say, well, this damn job or this or that which is outside and something else and somewhere else, what Lisa was talking about, right? So them, they did it, it's their fault, right? And you're just trying to barely get by and it's their fault, their fault. Okay, except that you're the only one there. So when you stop for a moment and you go, okay, well, it's their fault, but I don't like it. They're doing it, but I don't like it. And I actually want to live and expand because I can see, right? I can see that all of me is expanding in all of these other places except for right here. And that's expanding too, which I don't like, right? Because it's the pain point that's expanding. It's the drudgery or the drag down or however you want to describe it, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I could, or other people could slog them. Well, it's the job. I got to change the job. Well, except if you've gotten in the habit of doing that in one place, and this could be with family. This is a very common thing with family members because they just don't understand or whatever it is, right? So everybody's is going to be different. But a job one is always good because it's an easy. They did it, right? The boss. You don't understand. I got to work, and I got to wear the diaper on the face, whatever. When you stop for a moment and say, okay, well, nobody else matters, right? In this situation, they disappear. What do I want? What do I know is my truth, where my heart is, where my consciousness is, where I'm consciously, actively going to expand? And I know that it's my calling. I know that it's my heart's desire. So you can label it, everyone will label it in different ways. So what am I showing me here? What's this? What's the picture that I'm showing? Because clearly I wasn't paying attention because I got this picture so, to use a kicking term, that the flavor is so piquant here now that it's irresistible, right? I can't miss the uniqueness of the flavor and the zing that I'm getting from the sauce we got boiling over here all over the floor, right? So, and then and again, it's different. So just you could do lots of things. You could talk it out to yourself in an empty room in the woods, to friends. You could write it out. You could do it in all different ways. And there's no blaming. It's just, well, I want this, or I feel this, or you could even say they made me feel, or this, whatever it is, and but not attachment to. You're not even observing it. You're just seeing how it all interplays. And then you keep coming back to, I am this, right? I am being this. I am exuding this. I'm expressing this. I am being, my effervescence of love is doing this, whatever. And you're going to see there's common themes. So where can you then put just that in there? And what you'll find is you build those boundaries back up again. The other boundary that you'll find, it seems to just naturally occur when you're playing the game the way I'm talking about it, where it's staying with just you. It's not blaming. You come back to you because everybody else has disappeared, right? Um, and one of those, you could call it a boundary, you could call it a superpower, you could call it this sword that you're wielding with great precision, and that is neutrality. So that you stay to the core, you have the boundaries of not letting anything, anyone, anything, whatever, however form, no form that it is, will infiltrate the boundaries of your beingness, of your love absolute, of your consciousness aperture, right? And the neutrality wall, the neutrality superpower will then, someone can say something in this family relationship or at work or whatever it is, and it's not a good or a bad, it simply is something, and it will either match and resonate, right, and set up this whole beautiful coherent resonance, zing, 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 right, which expands, right, or it will not, and it will bounce off. So you've taken the they out of it and the downtrodden me out of it. You have the fullness of you, which is whole. You are emitting that because we just talked about that resonant where it comes. You're giving the gift, you're being of service to all others out there, should they choose to choose it. And you're giving and being of service to you as self, as other, because you're not this downtrodden bootjack sort of thing, because they've been doing it all too. Because you smartened up and said, hang on, it's just me here. I'm going to quit doing that. Right? So that's a combination of the boundaries and the expansion.
Well, I know thank you both for that, because I do get that now, Lisa, that because of the way you have that set up, just nullifies it all. Because of, and Jennifer said, I find that the boundaries come naturally as I move in love. And so it's only it's only when I struggle with my boundaries that I have issues. You know what I mean? That's that. And like you said, BZ, that's me with me. That has nothing to do with anyone else.
Right.
Even when I, step over whatever, boundaries I may have set for myself. And, or also when I find myself being triggered by something, that too. So,
Well, you had
Yeah,
mentioned, go ahead, Lisa.
that's what I discovered for myself. A lot of what was triggering me was really just lack of boundaries. Like, well, why is everybody so mean to me? Was one of my famous ones, because I felt like the love I was offering wasn't being reciprocated. And so that was really my own boundaries, because I was doing things for others to show my love instead of just being love. Okay. And then when things weren't happening that I expected, because they love me too, right? Really, what it was me looking for someone else to fill me up in some kind of capacity. And it wasn't me fiercely staying within my own boundaries of filling my own cup. Right. And then going out into the community to, play with my friends. But
Well,
first I have to be full. I can't go out there going, gimme, gimme, gimme what you got for me. You can't give everybody in your life a job to fulfill some service for you. That's not love.
No. And like you
well,
said, Sheila, you said that you weren't firm on your boundaries. Well, again, or stepping over the boundaries. A lot of times, what that is lack of love for self, lack of genuineness in your. It's not the love is not is a newsflash to a lot of people on the planet. It's not dependent on anyone or anything else. Love is love. It does not diminish or dissuade or in any way be some kind of deflated or anything else like that when it's love. It doesn't need anything else to not only sustain itself but expand. So that's when you talking about that was a video that came in, is that it's that somehow feeling small in yourself and that love part. And so that was, again, going back to what Lisa just described, you kind of stepping over your own boundary because, hey, maybe you could find something over there. And unfortunately, this is kind of part of how we're all trained and taught. We go look, if we do right, if we're a good person, go outside. And I'm saying there's anything wrong with being a good person, but when you do it in this way to
I get that.
genuflect at that, right? It's an empty hollow. It's not genuine at all, because it's not. It's built on just shifting illusory nature instead of rock solid core cosmic principles.
well, what I heard, part in part of what Lisa said too, uh, because this was something that I had a really hard time getting to seeing, but I see now too that what Lisa just described, right, was that she was looking for that something. That is what attachment to an outcome of a behavior actually is. And I didn't get that for the longest time either, but I now recognize, when that happens within myself, that there, well, and the noticing that I've come to feel in regards to all of that is, that's always a tell for me. There's an attachment if I'm getting all Becky butt hurt because something's not happening in whatever the way it was I expected it to go. That's an expectation along with an attachment to how it turned out, which never works good and has no place in what actual love absolute is,
Right.
at least for me, moving forward. And it wasn't an easy and a very easy thing to actually be able to see easily about myself. At first it wasn't, because I just didn't grok all of that, but it ties very intimately into, honestly, this entire conversation. For me, it entails, being open to considering all of these ideas first, you know, but then, in the choosing love portion, this is where, for me, all of the rest of this conversation kind of fits into that for me. um I in particular had a really tough time, even with the word love, and a lot of folks who have, in this inverted, really wild matrix we set up here, haven't experienced love in the way that we're speaking on here when we say choose love. And that's why I've always felt what I feel about the languaging, because one person's experience of love is going to be completely different than the other person's experience of love. All the different types, all different ways. And just that right there, like I said, when I first started all of these conversations with the two of you, with others, I couldn't grasp what it was you were speaking on in regards to the love that we use in this title, choose love. So I don't know. I felt like that was important to throw in about the boundaries in regards to this,
Mm-hmm.
because it all fits in that first part of the topic that we were.
What's interesting is that the boundaries that each of us have spoken on in this conversation and given form and fleshed out in a field too, right? It's a boundary field. They're actually not constrictive at all. That they're the exact opposite. In fact, they expand in greeting to all that which is a resonant match to, and again, because it's not hierarchical, you can have something that's quote unquote in a lower vibrational landscape can still be a resonant match to something in a higher vibrational landscape, right?
Mhm.
It can be a match. It's just not vibrating at the same level, but it has that expansive point where the boundaries around it and all that will meet. And now you've popped up. Maybe there's a vibrational landscape in between the two, right? Where
Well,
one.
that now you've just, in my view, you've just described exactly what Lisa was speaking on, that she has, that she does, where she pops open that other there now, and what I've spoken on in regards to the merging of more than one reality. So here's Lisa in her love goggle bubble that has met now, let's say me, who's not in a love goggle bubble. And but she is capable. I've seen this. Well, again, she does it with me all the time. It's not like we're in the same frequency. I mean, it's a little bit better, but so by agreement, we're in this shared reality bubble that surrounds me in that absolute love. And I may be thinking, feeling, talking about, working through something that is not of the same frequential landscape where Lisa in her love goggle bubble it resides full time. But that doesn't mean that she is not able to have that pop up, like you just described, BZ, in between my bubble here, Lisa's bubble here. Now we're in this shared reality by agreement,
Yeah.
because the moment I step over a boundary, then they would, those two bubbles would part, I would think. Now, did I describe that
The
well?
shark boundary comes and bites you in the ass and tells you to quit doing that.
That was really good. I like the way that you talked about that. That was great. That was a good separate envelope or bubble was really good. And I feel like there isn't a single person I've ever met that we don't have a resonant bubble. There is somewhere within each one
Right.
something that we agree upon and that we can
the,
grow.
the reverse of what I was giving the example of, that you can have it all going good in all different parts of it, except for this one section here. The same,
Right.
it can be the other way around. So that's, I think, part of the confusion. People think of boundaries, and it's hard. Actually, I don't know why, but I'm just going to go with it. The video that came in is, the whole world is looking at, Orange Man bad, and he has mean tweets, right?
Yeah.
And they don't look at anything else. And so, well, you could look at it, those are his boundaries and such, because he does not want to live or be part of expanding a world that is not love, that does not have these things removed from it. I'm just saying that's how he's holding it, right? You
Right.
may agree or disagree, that's fine. But now you're taking away, the Orange Man bad is gone. He got kicked off the playing field, plucked off, whatever, and the mean tweets are gone. So the outward seeing a bubble is gone. And what do you have left in the landscape? Well, people are stepping and boot jacking all over the place, and people are like, wait a minute, we need boundaries. Time out, stop doing this. And as Sheila talked about, that's how people see exactly what's going on, because it's the inverted thing. So boundaries are what I'm speaking of, and what the whole I thought behind the conversation is that it's around, it actually is a platform for expansion. It's a platform of the invitation and then the choosing to have more connectivity with all, and more resonance building with all, and more love absolute building with all. It's not about letting, keeping stuff out.
Right.
It's about seeking where those two can come into resonant field building and coherence and expand. So some people may be not be, this sphere that gets bigger. It may be a round sphere with a little thing here, little stuck on bubble there and a stuck on bubble, because they have not, in their own choosing, right, and in their own wielding and orchestrating of their own power, which is unlimited. They just haven't remembered that yet, or figured that out yet, or use it yet. That's, kind of like this odd shaped bubble with a bubble attached here and there, instead of like this.
So Fawn said, I no longer look for someone to love me. I love who I am, and I know I will never receive that kind of love from an outside source. And Jennifer shared that for me, the language differences go away or fade when we read the energies.
Right.
And I'm sure you're right about that. For me, because I don't know, I'm not a very subtle person at all. I don't do vague very well at all. That's another reason I think I'm so huge on communication. And so that's not the way it is for everyone. And so for me, like I said, I was just getting to know my own damn self, okay? Because for one thing, I never took time to get to really know myself on any sort of level. So I had to start from the very basics, you know? I mean, honestly, I didn't know who I was, didn't really know what in the hell I actually wanted. So how the hell you figure out where your boundaries go when you don't even know what the hell you want? So there's been a lot of being fierce to me actually meant a whole hell of a lot of stuff when I first started all of this. So, you know, that's why I wanted to add there that, and it will be different for everyone. And you're right. I have gotten better at reading energy and reading energy signatures, and because I'm trusting myself. And everyone who's here now, everyone who's ever been to one of my intuitive reading sessions, all of this has served uh, to help me uh, be able to read all of that sort of thing. So I mean, I'm in agreement with you, Jennifer. I'm just saying I'm not as adept at that yet.
Well, I'd be willing to
um,
interject something for you to play with. It doesn't have to be now.
okay.
It doesn't have to
I
be
love
now,
that.
but I think I know, I don't think, I know that you're far more adept at it than you have thought yourself capable of before. And the evidence of that, is your own self having, after the first conversation you had with me, actually having another one and another one. Because if there was what you give voice to, lip service, sorry, to, is that, it was different. They were using different words, and I couldn't feel it. I didn't read the energy. Then you wouldn't have stuck around to play, because there's a whole lot of people out there you can talk to,
Oh,
right?
that's true.
Who may on in theory be talking, specific language with definitions and the right punctuation and all that kind of stuff, and it's clear and easy to see. It's right. It's all surface. It's all right there, easy to see.
I
Instead,
see what you're saying. So yeah, I picked up on the energy and stuck around because of the energy. So
yeah,
even though I thought I did, okay, thank you.
fighting the whole way, I might add, but
Well, first of all,
the whole
I
disconnected thing. Hey, Lisa, could you tell myself?
listen. I never said this was going to be an easy ride, did I? Did I?
No,
Okay.
to your credit, you was very upfront.
Thank you. Well, you see, that's exactly.
I love that about you, girl.
Well, thank you so much. I
Know
appreciate it.
exactly what I'm dealing with.
Mhm.
I
Yes.
remember after the very first show, I chuckled. We hung up the phone and I chuckled and I said, and she thought she had invited me to interview, converse with me. And I'm thinking, no, actually, she was doing it to converse with her on the whole thing. And boy, if she sticks with it, she's invited quite a conversation.
Well, and what now? Let's see. It's been 3 years, actually, a little over 3 years since our first conversation. BZ. It was back in October of 2017 when we had our very first conversation. And any of you that are here now that are interested in that first conversation, all you have to do is go to the channel, click videos, and then tell it to sort by date and find it and do oldest first. And you'll see it. It's in October of 2017. And BZ's name is in the first in the title. So yeah, you're right. To see the difference of my expansion. So there's that. So yeah, thank you, BZ.
So, anyways, that's my proof of what you just said is lip service because
Okay,
I got it on video, so I don't need any more proof than that.
I stand completely corrected. Okay, so okay. Fawn said, I'm seeing people stuck in the basement with Joe now, and they regret their choices.
Right. Well, yeah, that's what I was talking about, the whole boundaries and the orange man bat and the mean, tweets and stuff because they were looking for the shallow stuff. They were actually, so your whole conversation works in well with that, Sheila. They were looking for the not being vague and this kind of stuff, which was just surface, which was just shallow, which wasn't giving the whole meaning and the whole richness and context of everything. And it's also good for really good, very effortless bait and switch, like you have in the installed puppet head fiction there.
Yeah, we'll see what the truth of all that is, I'm sure, because that's an interesting little set of stuff there. So, but you're right, and it's really exactly along this. That's why I said it's the same line where we're it feels like now those that are stuck in that basement now they are getting to see for them, and not all of them will even get to see at that point, but we'll see. So let's see. Oh, Kevin said he's still laughing at Becky Butthurt. I'm sorry. Well, listen, as soon as I understood that is really, it's a very basic thing. And I didn't understand what having an attachment to something looks like, but that's where I came up with the Becky Butthurt, because it's like this. If I say I want to do X, Y, and Z, and my boundaries are A, B, and C, and you don't want to play like that, well, there's no worries. There's nobody has to get all hurt and Becky butthurt about it. The only reason people get hurt is if they were expecting something and they had an attachment to it turning out in a particular kind of way and it didn't. So you see, but by being open to things presenting in whatever way they present, I can say, oh, do I want to play with that? No, not really. And just go the other way. What do I got to be all upset? It's only when I have an attachment to something that I get Becky butthurt. Oh, they don't want to play with me.
Or if you have an attachment and a fierce one, but you haven't acknowledged that you have the attachment to said thing, which we also have on video quite a lot.
Yes, we do have that quite a lot on video. You're absolutely
Right.
right.
And that's a whole noticing, and that's a whole openness to where, it's all of these things which can let everybody else dissolve, and it's just the being who's playing with this. That's why it's all play about it, and to figure it out, and so that goes back to the example I was giving of how do you choose love to dissolve the illusion, the illusory nature of things. And if you got it all handled and all the things, but except for a family thing or one particular friend or group of friends or one particular work thing, whatever it is, and that makes it a little bit more frustrating because you're thinking, well, wait a minute, everything else is expanding and flowing. So what is this, thing here? And so again, always go back to you because you're that powerful.
Yep, absolutely. Now I have a question though. Let me see. Fawn said, when someone starts to unpack their baggage with bad energy, I help them repack their baggage with love. Oh, that's sweet.
I love it.
Um, but my question is for Kevin. You say she's a big part of all our egos. What did you mean by that, Becky? Becky is a big part of all our egos. Is that what you're saying, Western? That's kind of interesting. Yeah, I don't think if that's what you're saying, I don't think I could disagree with you on that. Because it is my personality that's been formed over the 59 years who Smarmy, I have affectionately named that portion of my ego. Smarmy, uh yeah, could get, I could see where Smarmy would get all Becky butt hurt if an attachment to something wasn't coming out right. So I don't know if this is an answer to that, or that's not an answer to my question, is it, Kevin? Kevin said the institutions who got burned in the market got timely visit from her last week. Don't worry, she'll be coming around the mountain again.
She
What?
will, and she's going to and she's silver is the door. J.P. Morgan and the rest is the first place she's visiting big time as they all sit on the rubble of what's, and anybody with the SVL and your paper silver, which is an interesting concept. Hard to
Right,
make jewelry out of paper silver.
Yeah, really tricky.
right, right.
Or
Well,
computers or anything else that has
Yeah,
industrial
anything.
components of
right.
silver.
Well, I really appreciate all you guys coming out and hanging out with us this evening and participating in our live conversation. And Smarmy is Becky's sister. Smart, yeah. Actually, Smarmy's male. I have to own up to that. Smarmy's male, and so yeah, brother to
But
Becky.
he's a good tangoer.
I would say what?
He's good at doing the tango.
Oh yeah, yep. No, no doubt, no doubt. Well, I'm really very appreciative of both of you guys coming and having this conversation. BZ, I love it. I kept the other two topics so we can revisit those at another time. And so in closing, because I was going to close earlier, but I wanted to get that out because I could feel that that was an important part we needed to throw in there, was in regards to the boundaries and attachments and things like that. So is there anything further that either one of you or both of you would like to add to this
choose,
envelope?
choose, and choose wisely.
Choose and choose wisely. I love that. Jennifer wants to add so much love to you, dear ladies.
Oh, and the same to you. All of our
So
chat friends. Appreciate you.
yeah. Lisa, did you have any final thoughts you wanted to add?
No, just thanks for coming to play. I enjoyed myself. I hope you did too.
Yeah.
Yeah. Awesome stuff. All right. Well, I am going to be doing a live tomorrow morning. So if you guys are around, actually, I'm not going to do it in the morning. I'm going to do it at noon. I've got a new ritual every morning. I really am enjoying Steve Bannon's War Room, live. I have to tell you guys, it's really great news program. So I'll put a link to that in the show more section if you find yourself interested. So I'll be live directly after that tomorrow morning with a little collective read. If you have not already subscribed to Conscious Conversation Essential, I would love it if you would do so. Make sure to hit that double click that little bell icon. That'll notify you when I go live or upload. Also, in the show more section, there will be links to the IUV, which is the place of record for all of what the crumbling and the simultaneous building of the new earth. There's a link to the IUV, i-uv.com, in the show more section. Also a link to BZ's channel, which you'll find under BZ Rieger, but it is the Quantum Playground. And make sure if you're watching this on Quantum Playground, you come over and subscribe here. And the same here, if you're subscribed here, go over and subscribe there as well, because we both do videos that don't end up on each other's channels. So if you don't want to miss anything, make sure you're subscribed in both places. So is there anything else I missed? Don't think so. Thank you, ladies. Again, thank you all for coming and hanging out. So till next time, choose.
Love.